Every year, Client Success runs a survey in the customer success community. We call it the annual State of Customer Success survey. Last year was the first one, and hopefully many of you saw it last year. This year, we're excited to share the results that many of you provided as we did this incredible survey. My name is Dave Blake. I'm the founder and CEO of Client Success, and I am joined by Kristi Faltorusso, our VP of Customer Success. And we're excited to walk you through the results and share some of the insights. This year, we had a ton of responses. And so what we tried to do is take out bits and pieces of the survey that we thought would be insightful and helpful to you as customer success professionals, as leaders, as frontline, everybody, so we could understand what the state of customer success is. So here we go. Let's first start out and share a little bit about the survey participants. So this year we had a great response rate. We had 642 participants at all different levels. We'll share that. They represented 39 different countries and 579 companies. So thank you to those who participated this year, who are on this call. And for those who weren't able to participate this year, watch for it next year. It's usually released in June. Some other insights about the profile of all of these participants so that you can kind of connect the dots and to the results. We had most of our participants were based in North America, followed by EMEA, and then APAC and LATAM. Pretty even spread between enterprise, mid-market, and SMB customers, although companies, although most came from enterprise companies. And then you could see that the breakdown of the survey participants by employee size and by title. We had a really good breakdown across different sizes of companies and different titles, and that will show in the results today. All right, let's jump into the results. I think there's a few summary information we just wanted to share at the beginning. One is that we were thrilled to see that 68% of the teams who participated in the survey have grown their customer success team in the last 6 months. That's a great sign. We love to see the growth. We see it as a partner and a vendor in the space. We feel it across the community, and the results showed just that this space continues to grow. Companies are investing in customer success teams, and that's a great sign. We hope that continues to see that trend over the end of 2021 and into 2022. In the results, the medium team size was 8, and the estimated size of a customer success team in the total company size. So out of all employees in any given company, we estimated through the survey that there was about 5% of a team consists of the customer success team. So that's about the percentage of customer success professionals in all these companies that we surveyed. And then we estimated about 8.5% of revenue invested in customer success at any given company. So if you're looking at percentage of revenue to invest, 8.5 was what we saw in the survey this year. Kristi, any insights there that you wanted to add or touch on?
Yeah, I think what I love the most about the stats that we saw around this is that, as we were entering into the global pandemic, I saw so many customer success organizations contract, right? And I think a lot of us felt that. A lot of folks were either furloughed, lost their jobs. And what we saw is that as we started to navigate towards the end, and I know that we're not through it by any means, but companies are realizing the value of customer success, and to see this growth just kind of coming towards the end of that, I think is really tremendous. And I think it speaks volumes to organizations and leadership, just really understanding the value that customer success contributes to their bottom line. So I thought this is like just a great comeback story for customer success as a whole.
Agreed. We were thrilled to see that coming out of COVID. And we feel that I think personally that COVID was a benefit to customer success, as many CEOs and executive teams realized that it was time to double down and take care of current customers. And so that shows in these metrics. All right, the next one, let's jump in. Next one. So last year we did a key part of our survey was to understand the percentage of women in customer success. And so you can see that we made progress this year over last year. Last year, 2020, we saw that 44% of customer success professionals were women. This year, it rose to 56%. And we think it can even be bigger than that. And, I personally believe that this is one of the spaces and the professions that can lead out in all of SaaS as far as women, both as CSMs and as leaders, and in diversity and inclusion. The next one, and I'll get your thoughts, Kristi. Just let me share the next one as well. If you look at the number of women, the percentage of women in customer success leadership, last year was 35%. This year is 48%. Again, we believe that can even improve and grow over the coming years. Kristi, any thoughts there?
Well, I mean, this stat speaks to my heart, right? Yep. So obviously, as a female leader in customer success, I've seen this, right? We've seen so many promotions. If you guys are really active in the LinkedIn community, I don't know about you, but my feed is filled with people either getting promoted, taking new roles, new opportunities. And it is just fantastic to see how many women leaders are rising to the top. And so I know that even for our team, Dave, right, we've staffed up and hired a bunch of folks in our customer success organization, a lot of which are women as well, and many of whom have been leaders previously. And so I'm just thrilled to see that level of diversity at these different levels, right? But to your point, customer success is definitely an area of opportunity for women in particular. And I also am seeing like a lot of women transitioning from sales to customer success, from product to customer success. So it's really drawing, I think, on a lot of, advanced different skill sets and the diversity there. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity here, and we'll continue to see this number increase.
Yes, progress, but we are hopeful that it will continue to improve. The next one is we also looked at people of color in customer success. Last year, 12% on the CS on the front line perspective. This year we increased to 21%, but we have room to grow. We have a lot of room to improve in this area as a community, and invite all of the community to participate in improving this. If you look at leadership, similar stats. If you say, but a little bit better on the leadership standpoint, 17% in 2020 and 21% in 2021. So this one we feel like that we can be one that we can definitely improve and invite all of us to do our part in this regard.
Dave, I'd say a lot of companies, I think there was a lot of focus around D&I this year. And so I think that there is a concerted effort to change these stats. But to your point, right, we need everyone in the community to be more thoughtful about diversifying their teams. And when I think about diversity, and I've said this before, it's not just diversity in terms of what it looks like, right? It's diversity of thought. And that's making sure that you've got folks from all different walks of life, different experiences, different backgrounds. And so, this will also transcend obviously into this category of people of color, but also diversity as a whole. So I think companies are really focused on this right now. Hopefully that focus continues, because this will really help, I think, all businesses up-level themselves.
Agreed. Thanks, Kristi. We're on the same page there. All right, let's keep going. We asked one of the key questions we asked is where CS teams are reporting into. And I think this is a good sign. Most CS teams report directly into the CEO. So they're the leader of the customer success team, reports directly to CEO. The second one is chief customer officers. We see that title more and more, which is a great thing. It's a sign of maturity of our community and in these organizations. And then you can see how it tails off over the rest of the types of roles and responsibilities. The second one was looking at salary and experience comparisons. And Kristi, I'd love your thoughts here. But what you see is just in general, in average, again, this isn't geo-based or location-based, but based on the data we had, we said that the average salary for a customer success practitioner is about $90,000. That's at the 5 years of experience range. So it could fluctuate obviously below that or higher that. And then you could see how the salaries increase over there. Interesting thing that I noticed here was that the CXO had an average salary lower than the VP. The main thing that I would guess there, I scratched my head a little bit when I saw that data, but my guess there is that as somebody increases in their up that ladder, more and more of their salary becomes variable. And so this might be the average, the base salaries. And my guess is that a lot of there's a significant amount of variable compensation that the CXOs would have that would be the true OTE for those professionals. Kristi,
I think also maybe equity, right, would be a big driver for that as well, as kind of another component of kind of what makes up that suite package. I think a lot of companies, depending on what stage you're coming in at, the equity is actually, pretty sizable. And so I think having the opportunity to come in, earn a good living, but to make sure that you're in it for the long haul. And I think that's the investment that leadership's teams want to see for folks coming in at that level. And I'd say the same is probably true for VPs. And the varying degree there is I think just generally we have more VPs than we do folks at that C-suite level right now, right? I think that there are more organizations as a whole that will have up to a VP or even SVP before they have a chief customer officer or chief experience officer. So I think the role is still, I don't want to say new, but yes, new. And so I think as that continues to evolve, we'll see a bit of a variance there.
That's agreed. Now, one thing to note is if you look at the years of experience, if you're a young customer success professional or an early leader in customer success, notice that it usually on average takes about a decade, a little over a decade to get to that VP level. Now, obviously every company is very different and everybody's trajectory is different, but that's what the data shows is about 10 to 11 years that somebody becomes a VP in this space. Okay. So let's look at comp plans. Everybody's always interested in comp plans. We ask this every year, and this year was interesting. We saw a little bit of change from last year. We see now this year, based on all those surveyed, only about 18% have a pure base only compensation plan. And then you see 42% that combines a variable aspect of it, and for another 40% has a bonus. So variable is typically more of a kind of a commission-based plan, variable comp plan. I would expect to see more and more of that over the years, based on my experience and how it seems like people are changing their comp plans. And if you look at the variable component, you can see how the various splits of variables have broken out against these participants. So most people have a 90-10 base to variable split. And then the second one is the 80-20. I was a little bit, Kristi, I don't know about you, I was a little bit surprised about the 90-10. It seemed like to me that there was much more, they was shifting much more to a higher variable comp plan, a split, more like the 80-20 or even 70-30, but the data doesn't show that. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think I'm surprised there as well. I mean, this could be attributed to a couple of things, right? I think the stability of businesses during this pandemic could also have impacted this. I think most times I'm constructing compensation plans, I lead to the 80-20. I like a substantial amount of your equity and your earning to be tied to the work that you're doing. So I think if it's not sizable enough, sometimes it's not motivating enough. So I've always stuck with 80-20 or 75-25, but I'm also shocked by the 90-10, Dave.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's progress. We'll take it. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see that shift go up that scale up to more 80-20 to 70-30. Okay, so the next question we asked is, if for those that have variable comps, what are the main variables that make up that? What are you measured on to determine your variable compensation? And these were the 6 top. One was net revenue retention. That's been a key theme over the last year or two. The next one is revenue growth or expansion. Then gross revenue retention, CSM activities. Now this was like, the definition of that was the number of QBRs or number of calls or number of onboarding or outcomes achieved. Any kind of activities was that all falls under number 4. The 5th one is usage and adoption, and the 5th was NPS. So these are common elements that people use in their comp plans to determine that variable revenue achievement within the customer base. Okay, so let's look at some of the profiles of the book of business. On general, The average across this group was 104 customers managed. I don't know if that seems high to me to have on average 104, but that's what the data said. And then in general, the average book of business was 1.72 million. So there's this 2 million there's this 2 million mark that everybody talks about. I don't love to hear that because I think that was a rule early on, but it's not true. But this is what at least the averages were for these participants in this survey. Let's keep going. Okay, so then we asked, what are the key areas of the life cycle that the customer success team is responsible for? And I don't know that there's any surprise here. Kristi, I'd love your thoughts, but most people, the highest one was adoption, but high percentage, obviously, in onboarding, and higher every year. It seems like more and more responsibility for expansion and renewals. Any thoughts there, Kristi?
Yeah, I definitely think this split definitely comes down to the stage that the company's in and the complexity of the technology. Right. I think the more complex the onboarding, the higher the configuration of the platform, you're probably likely to have a specialist role. So either an onboarding manager or even having professional services lead that charge. So I definitely think that there's something to be said about the product and the organization and even who their customers are. If you're serving enterprise organizations, your deployment might be a lot more complex than if you're serving SMB. So I think that that's going to have heavily influence some of the split that we're seeing here. I'm actually thrilled to see that expansion and renewals continue to be a trend in the responsibilities for the CS organization. So I don't think that we're going to see a change there. I think if anything, next year's those numbers will increase significantly.
Agreed. And I think the data also shows that. We'll get even more into that in just a minute. This shouldn't be any surprise if you look at what they're responsible for, and then we ask, where do you spend most of the time? You'll see that most of the time is spent on those adoption activities, and this kind of fairly correlates with the responsibility. Wherever you're responsible and wherever you measured, you're going to spend most of your time, and that's where the data mirrored as well. All right, here's the big question, the question of the decade: who owns the renewal? This year, we see 50% of the team own renewals entirely. Then you see sales, 18% have sales own it. 13% have a specific renewals team. And then 18% have some shared responsibility, either with sales or with a renewals team. And that's what I would expect this to continue to increase. Obviously, deal complexity, company size, and those things do come into play here, but we continue to see the trend where CS owns renewals, and that's exciting to see in the data. Okay, how about expansion? Similar question. We asked who owns expansion. Customer success teams was the highest, 74%. This is even higher than renewals, so this is a interesting stat. Sales team 58%. 9% have a dedicated expansion team, and then another 9% have the renewals team. Any thoughts here, Kristi?
I mean, I think this is like organically going to end up in customer success because this is just part of the natural growth of an organization. So depending on how you're defining expansion, but if it is increasing licenses or additional consumption of their current subscription, I think organically it makes sense for the customer success person to lead that charge. Typically what you're going to find is that this is the customer coming to you, that there's a need to increase this. So I think it's I think if it's more of a reactive motion than it is proactive, right? Whereas cross-sell or upsell might be more proactive. Maybe you're going to have the sales team and other teams lead into that.
Yes, I agree. One thing that I would just say for customer success professionals out there and leaders is that as you see these trends happen where customer success teams own more and more expansion and renewal, is just the need to be able to develop the skill sets to be able to adequately own those. I think we focus a lot of our skill sets on relationship and product and all those, but continue to make sure that you're building up the expertise and the soft and hard skills that are required in order to effectively navigate this. I typically see, and Kristi and I talked about this earlier, is customer success teams are not often the best negotiators. We tend to give in a little bit more, I would say, and maybe a little bit softer than our sales counterparts. And so those are things that we should just consider as customer success team, is how to have a successful negotiation and navigate these discussions effectively. So, okay, let's jump in. So based on that, on the survey that we had, we saw that there's a mixture, a variation of customer engagement models that companies use. So out of everybody, this isn't meant to add up to 100%. The question was, which of these customer engagement models does your team use with your customers? And so 77% of all of those surveyed have some kind of high touch model. 55% have a medium touch model, 31% low touch, and 28% tech touch. Thoughts here, Kristi? There's a lot of discussion right now in the industry about low touch and tech touch. Although we see those models only engaged or used in a smaller percentage of the time. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think that folks are still trying to figure it out, right? So I think that there is a strong desire to understand more about how they can operationalize a lower engagement or tech-led, digitally led engagement model. But I think that's why there's so much buzz around it, because people want to have the conversations, figure out how other people are doing it successfully. I still think that the jury's out on this one. I don't think that anyone's nailed it and said, wow, I have the best way to do this. At the end of the day, customers are going to have needs, questions. They need to be properly enabled. They need to be engaged. And I don't think that anyone's figured out a way to digitize that fully. So I still think that's why this is lower, even though the chatter in the community would suggest otherwise. So I think this was interesting data for everyone to see.
Yeah, I think you touched on some great points. So this is kind of an evolving a part of our community is how to engage with these different models. Okay, so with that, this should be, how often are you talking with your customers? Most people are talking with or engaging with their customers on a monthly basis. Many on a weekly basis, and then you could see how it goes on there. I don't know that this is surprising, especially based on the data we just saw around high touch versus low touch. There seems to be a focus on a more frequent conversation with the customers. All right, the next one was, what were the top KPIs, company KPIs that the CS team is responsible for? Somewhat a little bit repetitive. I apologize from some of the other questions, because you would expect that these KPIs are the same ones that are used in comp plans and those things. But the number one KPI is renewals. I don't think that's any surprise. Number two, product usage and adoption, and then net revenue retention. Customer engagement was number four. Customer goals and objectives. I think this is similar to Tech Touch. I think a lot of teams are trying to understand how to track customer goals and objectives and how to show progress around those. We're excited. We're releasing something on that in the near future. Expansion revenue, NPS, logo retention, customer advocacy, and CSAT. CSAT at the bottom of that list. Anything here, Kristi, that is insightful? Sorry to put you on the spot on that one.
I don't think there's anything out here that is terribly shocking. What I would say is that number 5 is interesting, right? Because I agree that number 5 should absolutely be there. I think it's the sole purpose of why we exist, right? Is to help our customers lock in on goals and objectives and achieve what they set out to do. I think it's really hard for a lot of organizations to get their customers to specify what their goals are. And then I think it's even harder for customer success practitioners to help track that. And so I think that is a big area of opportunity in this space, is being able to have an area where you can actually hone in on those goals, collaborate on it, and keep that visibility going. Because I think that should be like the number one thing, because I think that leads to everything else. But I just feel like, we're not doing a great job as an industry as a whole. I think if you're working with large enterprise organizations, maybe they're a little bit more dialed in. They have a stronger understanding of how to quantify that. But I would say for a lot of organizations, especially in their customer success infancy, that's probably a lot tougher to get to.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you brought up a good point. If you look at all of those, 9 of those are inside out KPIs. And 5 is the outside in. It's the one that's truly focused on the customer's success and their objectives, where the other ones are internal metrics that we judge ourselves on for the most part as teams. All right, let's go. So then we asked a question: which teams do you rely on most for your success? This shouldn't be a surprise. Product number 1 by far, mainly because customer success teams. I mean, at the end of the day, the product is critical for our success. If we don't have a good product, it's hard for anybody to drive success. Whereas if you have a great product, it's so much easier to drive value and to grow your customer base. The second one is sales. There's deep collaboration with sales, both pre-sales process to hand off expansion and renewals. You can have a lot of success if you're aligned with the sales team, if they're closing good fit customers. You can have a lot of challenges if you have friction with the sales team and if they're closing bad fit customers. So hopefully we're developing a great relationship with sales, and then you can see the others: operations, support, finance, and product services or professional services.
There's a lot of chat here, Dave. Going back on that one, sorry.
Yeah.
And I have to agree, support is really low. How is that possible? Are people just not thinking about it the right way, like in how they engage with support? Or maybe they're not collaborating with support. I just feel like support has a wealth of information. There's so much, like they're engaging with the customers. If you're a customer success practitioner, how are you not collaborating with them?
Yeah, there's 2 things. One, it could have been the way that we asked the question, but I would agree that I think that our friends in the support team don't get enough love. Sometimes I feel like inadvertently we rely heavily on them, but we don't praise them. We don't acknowledge their efforts, and we've just got to remember that they are many times the first line of the customer experience. They are the ones who are helping us. They're also as a customer success team, they're the ones that allow us to stay more strategic because they're able to handle a lot of the tactical things. And so I agree. We need to recognize and acknowledge our friends in support much more than we tend to do so.
Yeah, there's some interesting comments happening in the chat here where even folks are saying, well, we're the CSPs, but we're responsible for support. And that's actually very common in small companies or organizations that are just building out their post initial sales organization. So I think that's part of it too. So it'll be interesting to see when we go a little bit deeper into that data.
Yeah. All right. So we asked, this question was interesting. We asked, what are the top tools CS professionals use other than their customer success platform? So, there's no customer success platform. We wanted to understand what are the tool sets that they commonly use, either they love to use or are required to use. And I'd say that several of these are no-brainers. Some others are interesting. Certainly Salesforce, HubSpot, CRMs are important, Excel and email. But you can see we've got a little bit of task management in here, communication with Slack and Intercom. Certainly Zoom. I think we love Zoom. Sometimes I think we get a little bit of Zoom fatigue, but you've got Gong there that's come up quite a bit. So interesting group collection of solutions that customer success teams continue to use day in and day out.
Yeah,
okay,
some folks mentioned that there was, no mention of any BI tools, which I thought was interesting. Yeah. I think that's, again, organizational BI tools are not inexpensive. So I think I think you need, if you have a data team, hopefully you have a BI solution, but I think that goes down to organizational sophistication, right? Your build out, how big is your team, how much data you're processing. I think not a lot of companies actually know what to do with their data or where all their data lives. So if you don't have insight into that, probably not using a BI tool. But I will stand here and say always and every day, Excel is the most powerful tool in the universe. And so if you're not using it or Sheets really strategically, I think you're under leveraging it.
That's right. I saw a question from Phil asking why ClientSuccess isn't on here. Just to point out, we wanted to share those that are not customer success platforms, other solutions that CSMs are using. One that I was surprised that wasn't on here was Loom. I hear, I don't know, in the chat, I'm looking over here, anybody use Loom? I see Loom more used more and more across customer success teams. And I was surprised to see that it wasn't one of the top ones quite yet, although I would guess in the next year or so that we'll see more of that.
I mean, the chat's blowing up here with Loom. We've got Vidyard as well. So I think
Yep.
like, yes, people want to engage that way. And I definitely think that, that video interaction with your customers, being able to show something and solve something visually, a lot easier than exchanging an email. So
Yep. Okay, we've got a few more slides and then we'll jump into a host of questions. So next thing we ask is where in customer success generally are people investing, are companies investing? And there's a variety of things. I think the top two was headcount, which is awesome. And the number one was investing in improving the overall customer experience. I love those two being number one. We also saw a good portion in building out specialized teams. So this would probably be renewals teams, onboarding teams, professional services, improving the customer experience, a significant amount of investment in tools and technology. That's great to see and to hear, especially for us as client success. And not many in outside consultants. And I would agree that. I think customer success teams are still, I don't think that customer success teams are still quite on par with sales and marketing teams with budgets in new investments. And so a lot of times they aren't investing in outside consultants because they're using that for headcount or technology or experience. Any insights here, Kristi, that you want to add that pop out in this slide?
No, I mean, honestly, the headcount, I think that's going to continue to grow. I think organizations right now, I think a lot of folks are in a rebuilding year, but I've also seen so many companies getting rounds of funding. And I know funding is typically to accelerate growth and scale. And so we're going to continue to see headcount be a big part of that. I'm not surprised to see tools and technology rank high. I think that's going to go with driving efficiency and operationalizing process. So again, going back to the investments that need to scale and growing. So I'm not surprised to see there. I mean, honestly, this makes a lot of sense to me. I'm actually surprised that onboarding is as high as it is. But I think when we talk about this question, it's maybe investing, I don't know if it was financially or if it was just enhancing or investing time and resources, maybe not funds, on the onboarding experience.
Yeah, there's several people in chat asking about the overall customer experience, and that just means building as a spending cross-functionally to improve the customer experience from sales through renewal and on. So it's improving process, it's improving headcount, being able to measure that. So there's a lot of aspects of it, and those are the types of things that would be under that category. Okay, one more. I would call this category, and this is the last one we'll share, customer success as a culture. This is a phrase we use in client success, and this is about how customer success becomes part of the DNA of a company. So in this case, we asked 6 different questions and asked people to gauge how much their company, their CEO, and others embrace these attributes in their company. So the first one, we asked, do you believe that your company is customer centric? This year, 81% said yes. I would describe our company as a customer centric company. The next one is, does your CEO get customer success? Does she or he understand the concepts of customer success? Does she embrace it? And so on and so forth. And we found that 76% of you said your CEO gets customer success. The next one, is customer success properly represented at the board meetings? Do they, and what I would say in that is, do you have your customer success leader in the board meeting? Is there ample time? Is there equivalent time devoted to customer success as sales or product or others? 57% said yes. So we have a lot of improvement that needs to happen there. The next one, everybody on this call can help change this. I'm really disappointed in this. The question was, does your company celebrate renewals similar to how they celebrate new sales? Only 47%. Kristi, is that surprising to you?
It's sad, but can I also raise something?
Sure.
How can 81% of the respondents say that their organizations are customer centric, and then only 57 say that they're represented properly in board meetings, and 47 say they celebrate renewals. I mean, to me, those two things need to be happening all the time in order to support like the customer centric mindset in an organization. So I just feel like that feels a little off to me.
I agreed. So I'm calling on everybody on this call, all of us in the community. We've got to change these some of these metrics, but start with celebrating renewals. Find a way. Have a Slack channel for renewals. Have your customer success team do their own closing songs. Get siren. I don't know, whatever it is. Town hall meetings. But we've got to celebrate. Renewals are not easy to do. I think all of you would agree. They are sometimes as hard or harder than closing new deals. And we should be celebrating every single renewal just like we celebrate every single sale. So let's do that together. The next one, we asked, is there visibility into CS metrics across the entire company? 61% said yes. The next one, does your company speak about customer success? Is it a topic that's often 78.7%? That mirrors the customer centric, but it's interesting, those middle metrics. And then the last one was, does your company have a customer advisory board? I'm not surprised with the customer advisory board. Kristi, are you? I think that comes with typically it happens as your company grows bigger and you have larger customers. I think there's a lot of discussions with customers across companies, but implementing a formal customer advisory board, I'm not surprised at that number, although I'd love to see it higher.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a huge level of effort, and it's a top-down led initiative that requires a lot of orchestration, funding. I mean, it's like, to do a customer advisory board really well, it's expensive from people, process, technology, and revenue. So, I mean, I'd say even for the 30%, 36% that are doing it, I'd love to even hear if they're doing it to the extent that I would envision a proper advisory board council being structured. But having built them before, it's not a easy initiative to kick off.
Agreed. I've had a lot of experience there too, and they're super powerful, but they take a significant amount of investment to do them right, both in dedicated resources and a cross-functional engagement there. Okay, now I want to just show here, as this is the last one, I want to kind of show how all of these metrics, how they compare this year to last year, so we can see where we've improved as a community in building customer success as a culture versus where we've digressed. And so here's what you can see, these numbers compared to last year. So the orange is last year. So you'll see in a few of these, we've gotten better, which is great. More customer centric, more CEOs are getting it. A couple, we've gone back, and I'd say this is really disturbing. Number one is like, last year we said that 70% of the participants had customer success properly represented in the board. This year, only 57. And we had a bigger sample size this year. So that's concerning to me. The other one that's a few others that are down is companies speaking about customer success is down from 81% to 77%, and customer advisory board, basically the same there. Any thoughts there, Kristi? Any additional?
I mean, I think you nailed it with a lot of your commentary on this, Dave. I'm disappointed to see the board representation. I don't really have a good anecdote why that might be the case. Yeah, I don't know why. I'd be curious to hear from others if you felt previously that you were represented well and now you don't, what happened? Because I think that'd be really interesting.
All right, so let's work on this. Next year, we want to see these improve. These three right here need to be up much farther, and these two are two in particular. We believe that the customer success community can really control our own destiny in here. This one will take a little bit more emphasis with the CEOs, the leadership teams, the board members, but we're hopeful that this will improve over time as well and get back up to the previous levels. All right, those are the main insights we wanted to share. And hopefully there were some interesting insights for each of you. Some of it may be that you feel like, okay, that's what I would expect. Some may be surprising, but we'd love to answer any questions that you have. We've got about 10 minutes. or 15 minutes. So any questions you might have, feel free to drop them in here, either based on observations or based on insights that you saw. If there's anything that you want us to at least give our thoughts on digging deeper, then we're happy to do that. Kristi, do you see any questions?
Yeah, it looks like we've got some questions in the Q&A.
Yep.
So we'll start here. Let's see. So Heather asked, how many CSM teams do their own analytics? We took it from our enterprise business intelligence team because they don't understand our intricate business. We adopted Power BI, but many CSMs find it difficult.
Well, I see more and more. I see more investment with customer success teams in their own analytics, whether it be being able to get more bandwidth from operational teams that are already there, or investing in their own operational teams to pull those metrics. That's what I see. Any thoughts that from you, Kristi?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a bit of the same. I think in terms of adopting any BI tool, I mean, for context, I worked at a company called SciSense, which is in the BI space. Analytics is tough, and using BI tools is not super intuitive. You really have to understand how to leverage the technology and all the data. So, I mean, having had to train and enable large organizations on it, it's tough. So if you have somebody internally that can do better training enablement, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, there are simpler ways to analyze data. Like I said, even Excel is super powerful. So just, try to get access to the things that are most important to you. Don't try to consume more data than that's necessary. I would hone in on a couple metrics that are going to move your business forward and work with your team on those.
Okay, great. Let's see. We had a question. Kristi, I'll ask you to answer. What's the difference between low touch and tech touch? How would you describe that?
Well, first of all, I hate touch. I prefer engagement. I'm not touching my like it's I don't know. Anyway, low engagement versus tech engagement. Tech engagement or a digitally led program is going to be almost exclusively driven by technology, right? So this is where you're having things like any automated communication with your customers, whether that's going out through cycles, campaigns, think about more push engagement, and then obviously automated responses and things like that. So it's really technology led. Whereas a low engagement model might be one where we saw some folks that they're only engaging with their customers on a quarterly basis or in a very reactive model. That's probably a similar structure to what you would see in a lower engagement model. So less proactive engagement from an actual person versus in using technology and digital, technology to kind of power that engagement.
Okay, great. I'll answer this from John. He asked, what in your opinion is the sweet spot for the number of accounts or MRR or ARR for a CSM? I don't know that there's a sweet spot. It depends on, there's a lot of factors. It depends on your price point for your product, the complexity of your product. I would say just generally, if you look at CSMs per account, if you want to have a CSM truly engaged with that account, I would say it's 25 to 35 would be a sweet spot, and the ARR depends on that. But once you get above 50, then the ability for a CSM to truly engage and in a deep sense starts to degrade at that point. And then about 100, then it's really hard for and almost impossible to have a valuable relationship with each of those customers. But 50 is where that degradation starts to happen as far as the depth of the relationship that you would have. Do you agree with that, Kristi, or would you give a slightly different answer?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I'm going to lead with my favorite response of all time, which is it depends, right? Yeah. And so it depends on the complexity of your product. It depends on your account team structure. If you're an organization that has a CSM, an account manager, a TAM, designated support person, right? Like your engagement might vary a bit because you've got so many people engaged with that customer. So I think it depends on the complexity of your product, the complexity of your account team structure, what the output is of the engagement and the need to. So I just think, it is going to depend. I do agree with your stats there, though. I think if you're trying to keep a high engaged model, 25 to 45 is probably where you're going to land. Anything beyond that is going to be too much. And honestly, the best way to calculate this is do a top down, bottoms up analysis. think about what you want your journey to look like with your customers, and how you really need to engage. Put some dates and time, like put some time against it. I did this analysis a couple companies ago, and I found it to be probably one of the most helpful for me, because it helped me realize that like the leverage ratios were way off. We were expecting our team to do a lot more than they could actually do. And it was actually a really fun exercise because we were able to present that to the CEO, which helped support getting additional funding for our CS org.
Okay, that's great. Let's see. What other questions do we have? Let's see. Let's ask at this one. Looking back at the top KPI slides, how do you track product usage? Is that based on product adoption, number of products the customer uses, how often they log in, or how often they use the platform? I can appreciate this can be nuanced answer depending on the product and customer base. And that's coming from Ian. Ian, I agree. Product adoption, there's usage and adoption. Usage might be, one might be breadth and one might be depth. And so that's how you do it. Adoption could include the number of products they use, or the depth. There's two different ways that you can look at both usage and adoption. And then there's also license utilization. So there's many different vectors. I think the key is to try to find the vectors that are important to you and your company, and then track those consistently over time. Anything you would add, Kristi, on that?
No, I think that you nailed it there, Dave. I think it's just honing in on what are the ones specific to the business that actually indicate strong adoption and value outcome.
Okay. Here's a good one for you, Kristi, from Lottie. She asks, as the team grows, curious your thoughts on splitting CS team into onboarding, retention versus one point of contact for the entire journey. How would you look at that, of specializing, breaking up the journey versus having the CSM owning the entire from new to renew?
Yeah, I think that there is something to be said about continuity, right? So keeping a single point of contact who is probably going to be the owner of the account. But I do think that they're having supporting functions, and those specialty roles helps to orchestrate and execute nicely. I've always been a big fan of, having the CSM who's there from day zero throughout the entire partnership, right? But you introduce somebody who's going to help orchestrate onboarding. You introduce somebody who might help with implementation or managing the renewal, right? So I think how you structure it and how you operationalize it makes a big difference, because this is where we talk about all of these handoffs and this disjointed experience. You want to avoid that. So I love specialty roles. I love breaking down the journey with really smart people who have the right skills to do the things you need them to do, but just make sure it's not a disjointed experience for your customers.
Okay, great. Aaron asks, how do you feel about one-to-many or pooled customer success model? Maybe I'll take a first crack at that. I think that it depends on what is the right thing for your product and to be able to allow you to scale and what kind of investments. But I know that I've been in an experience where I've seen in one company very, very high touch with strategic accounts that were $1 million in ARR or more, and then all the way down to a lower engagement, I guess. Sorry, Kristi, for using low touch. A lower engagement or pooled model for the smaller customers, and that was the best way we could scale. And they put together a pooled model that was really successful. It met the customer's needs, and I think that's the key thing, is whichever segmentation or delivery model that you do, just make sure that you optimize it for the customer experience, not just for your experience and for your profitability. If you can optimize it around the customer and their experience, then you can have success in whichever model you choose to adopt.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Dave. I think one thing I'd add is just making sure that you're setting proper expectations with the customer, right? I think you never want to oversell what resources might be available at their disposal. So I think also making sure that your sales team is clear on, what the customers will have access to as well, because those expectations are key.
Okay, we have time probably for two more questions. Do you see any there, Kristi?
Well, I was busy in the chat, Dave.
Okay, sorry. All right, I'll take the questions. Okay, a couple more questions. You keep chatting, I'll keep answering. Let's see. This is for Kristi, for you, since you like
Brad.
Yeah, Brad. Brad, since you like Excel as a CS tool, do you believe many of the tech tools are over-engineered, too complicated for the job, or too complicated for the job?
Think so. I mean, listen, I as a customer success practitioner, decade experience, I've seen a lot of the platforms. I do think that there's some that are overly complicated, unnecessarily complicated. I do think that a lot of them have simplified interfaces and are easy to use and you can get stood up pretty quickly. I like Excel for kind of my own analysis, right? I love doing a pivot table. I love kind of breaking down data and finding interesting anecdotes, things that I wouldn't otherwise find. I like it for those extra exercises, but for the day-to-day management and the orchestration of a customer success program, you can't beat a solution, right? You need a customer success platform. I'm sorry. And you can't do all that in Excel. I've tried. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are still doing it and painfully so. So no compromise there. Like, you have to have a customer success management solution to orchestrate a proper program and journey, but Excel is really cool for all of the other things, right? I would say Excel would replace a BI tool for me any day.
There you go. Well, with that, we'll drop the mic there. Thank you, everybody.